All right. If you read books, but you feel like you're not getting any smarter, I want to let you know that this stream is for you. Because in this stream, I'm going to be breaking down 20 of the problems that I've had when reading books. And these are also some of the top questions that I get, or questions that I necessarily don't necessarily get, but I top questions that I see. I'm sorry, I'm already screwing up my script here, y'all. This hook was supposed to be much stronger than this, but yes, these are some of the top questions that I see about reading, and I'm actually going to talk about how to fix them as well. So, and I want to preface this with, if you relate to any of these, the problem isn't necessarily you; it's most likely the system that you're missing. All right. So, in last stream, there was a bit of an issue with the stream overall. There was like lagging whenever I was using my slides. So I'm not going to be using any slides for this stream. I'm still trying to figure out what that workflow is going to look like. But instead, I'm going to be using my handy dry erase board right here. All right. And ultimately, what I'm trying to do here is these will be kind of like chapters. There's going to be 20 different questions that, again, these are just like huge problems that I've dealt with. And I have a story for every single one of them. I'll spare you a lot of those stories because some of them are just again, for the sake of time. But I want them to be kind of like, you can go back, and if you're watching on the replay, you can go through this entire stream, and there's going to be like a bunch of different things that you can do, things to take action on. And there's probably a solution in here somewhere for a problem that you're dealing with as far as like going through your reading journey. Again, don't want to take up too much time. If you're watching here live, let me know down in the chat. If you're watching on the replay, let me know down in the comments. Let's go ahead and get into the first question. Why do I forget everything I read? This was a huge, frustrating thing for me. And there's a simple solution to it. But I will say that there was like, once I was getting back into reading books again, I was just like, oh yeah, I'm just going to devour all these books, right? I'm just trying to get the information, and it felt good to consume the information. I felt like I was being a reader. A lot of this was done with an audiobook. And it's because I was reading passively, right? I wasn't actively reading. And ultimately, right, that just led to me. But I mean, if you let me know in the comments or down in the chat, how many times you've been reading and then all of a sudden you just get to like the fifth or sixth page and you're like, what did I just read? That is passive reading, like textbook passive reading, but also passive reading can be listening to an audiobook while you're outside doing some chores around the house, and your attention gets away from the audiobook, but you just kind of keep going, or you're kind of listening to it, but you don't really, do anything with the information, right? So the next problem is like you don't actively recall the information, right? So whenever you're in school, you have to take a test on the things that you learn in school. A lot of things you learn is like memorization type of things whenever you're in school. But the same type of effect happens if you ever read the book Make It Stick. It talks about active recall. And so if you're not actively recalling the information, if you're not like testing yourself on the knowledge there, or just trying to pull the knowledge from memory, there's no way the knowledge is going to be sticky long term. And so the solution that you want to do is like, so let's just talk about, you just read a few pages. Let's say maybe listen, be ambitious and say that you just read a chapter. You close the chapter or close the book, and I want you to just go through this simple method. I talk about this in another video. I have a whole video dedicated to this. This is my 3-2-1 method, right? So you want to close the book and state in your own words three main ideas, or the three key ideas from the story or the chapter that you just read, and then two questions that you have for follow-on chapters and later on in the book, and then one thing that you're going to take action on in the next 24 to 48 hours. What happens is when you close the book and you're recalling the information, those three key ideas or whatever it is, right? Just try to recall something. You're strengthening that knowledge, you're strengthening those neural pathways, and you're making that information more meaningful. And then the two questions that you have, that's just really your way of continuing to engage and making the book more of a conversation. I'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later in the video, I think. And then the last thing is like to take action on something in the next 24 to 48 hours. That's important because that's active recall. You're actually going out in the real world and you're applying it in real life and you're getting that real world feedback. And that's just like, that's how learning works, right? We learn from getting feedback. And so actually taking it and applying it, you're going to create an experience from that. And that's just going to be something that's sticky and long term. So that's one of the biggest things, one of the biggest tips that I could give as far as like why you forget everything you read is just like you don't want to be passively consuming the information. You want to be actively consuming the information. And that starts with just active recall and just using that 3-2-1 method. Right. Let's move on to the next question. If you have questions while we're going through the stream, feel free to drop them down in the chat and I'll take some time to expand upon something if something was confusing or didn't make sense. But let's move on to the next question. Again, we got the dry erase board here. If you're just tuning into the stream, we got the dry erase board because we don't have slides because they make the stream lag. And so this will probably be more fun for me to do this manually. But yeah, so we're rolling into the next question. Again, we're going to make these into chapters and things like that later on. I'll make this so that when like on the replay, this will be something that you can just go back and just kind of skim through to find answers to your questions. All right, next question. How do I actually remember books? All right. So I touched upon this a little bit. This is another common question, right? So it goes hand in hand with like what that's what. So we talked about why you forget, and so I'll breeze through this kind of quickly, but I'm also going to add some different stuff, right? So memory comes from use, not exposure. So it's not like I used to think that if I just reread a chapter over and over again, I just cram the information in, that was going to make it stick. But the best medicine for like retaining information is just actively or just going out and just doing and applying what you learn, right? So it doesn't come from just exposing yourself to the information. You have to use it. All right. So again, focus on those, three key ideas that come from the chapter in the 3-2-1 method. And then there's other options that you can have too, right? So you can write it in your own words, which gets into learning at science. It gets into the elaboration effect, right? So when you elaborate on the ideas and well, it's not really, it's not necessarily elaboration because elaboration is more along the lines of you are expanding upon things from existing knowledge. That's great. But when you can explain things in your own words, it's coming from you, and the knowledge is going to be stickier that way because you're recalling what you knew, and you're also putting it into your own words instead of just transcribing. I used to just take notes before. I would just pretty much copy and paste what was in the book to my notes. And I thought that I just needed to go back and just reread my notes over and over again until it kind of just stuck in my mind. And that's the whole exposing myself to my notes until it becomes long term. But that doesn't work, at least not for me. The best way was to actually go out and use what I learned, right? Apply these things and just to focus on those three key ideas. Another thing you can do is you can teach it, right? So if you're not familiar with the Feynman technique, basically what you can do is you can just teach what you learn, right? So whatever you're learning, you can call your mom, you call a family member, just kind of talk to them. You can talk to them about your spouse, whoever it is, a friend. You explain to them kind of what you've learned, and then you'll be able to kind of assess gaps in your knowledge that way. If you don't want to do that, you could do like record something on your phone, pretty much just pretending that you're teaching it to a friend. That way, just record a video. You could film a YouTube video and post it on your YouTube channel, kind of like I do here. Or you can just simply like write it down. Like this is why essays are so effective. They're not the thing that people enjoy writing. I don't think, at least in my experience, I didn't enjoy writing them in school, but they are something that's great because it allows you to unpack all the knowledge from memory that you have. And it's just a great tool for helping. Like for me, what I try to do right now, I'm reading the Bible and I'm in the fifth book right now, which is the book of Deuteronomy. And through each chapter, instead of just like trying to write notes, like with every single, like in like a Google Doc or on a piece of paper, what I've been doing right now is just like speech to text inside of a Google Doc. So I'll just go like just do bullet lines and just like from memory try to recall. Like I'll finish the book and I'll try to recall as many different things from. Especially Genesis was a beast. If you've ever read the Bible, Genesis is massive, and there's lots of different people that you got to remember from the story of creation all the way to Joseph. And so you going through that. That's a lot of things to remember. So What I try to do that's been helpful is just kind of just speech to text inside of a Google Doc and just kind of an idea or just like dumping that. And that's like a form of, for me, it's kind of a form of the Feynman technique because it's a way of like teaching or talking and saying the things that you've learned. All right. So that's a way that you can like those are just some ways that you can do it, right? So you can teach it, you can write it, or you can just go out and apply it. How do I actually remember books? Now we're moving on to the next question. Again, um, looks like we have a question down in the chat, so let's see what we got here. Masum, let me know if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly, but his question is, what's your take on reading from Kindle book? As I have a subscription active. All right, so I think the question um, is it a good idea to read from a Kindle? Um, I it depends. It depends on your stage and your journey as you're reading. If you're someone that's a beginner trying to get back in or trying to get into reading again, I wouldn't necessarily recommend uh, a Kindle, and I'll just tell you why. As I'm sure you probably know, there are risks associated with reading from a Kindle because I have the Kindle app on my phone. I'm not going to say that I don't have it and I don't use it because it can be really helpful. But the Kindle app also your phone has all these other apps which can be really distracting. So a great way to use your Kindle app is to download the book that you're reading and just try to read in like airplane mode if you're going to do that. Or if you get yourself like just like a Kindle, like a Kindle itself that only has the books on it, I think it's okay. I think it's totally you can do it, and it's a great way so that you don't. I mean, I have books on this shelf right here, but then I also have another bookshelf on the other side of the camera that's got a bunch of books on it. And if you're trying to live more of a minimalist type approach to books and you want to like a place to keep just store your books, I think using a Kindle is a great option. You just have to be careful with it, and that's why I say it just depends on the stage of your reading journey. If you're someone that's easily distracted and your struggle right now is focus, and you're just reading from the Kindle app on your phone, I don't recommend reading from your phone because anything digital is there's just going to be risk associated with reading from it. But it is a good option. What are the benefits to reading from a Kindle? Well, the first one, like I said, is that you just have all of your books in one location. You can take your books with you anywhere. You can read on an airplane. You can read while you travel, and you can just read on your commute. I mean, I'll be honest with you. If when I'm reading, like I'll use like one thing. I'm not using a Kindle right now, but if I don't have my Bible with me, I'm like at a dentist appointment, I'm reading inside of the Bible app. But again, it just goes back to like where you're at in your journey as far as reading on your Kindle and stuff. And just knowing, and we'll talk about that. There's some other things that I'm going to talk about here later in the stream about like focus, but just kind of know where you're at and just adjust based off of that. But if it's your only option, again, Kindle books can be cheap too. If you want like you can get a book on Kindle, I think a lot of times for cheaper than you can get the actual books on Amazon or whatever your local bookstore is, depending on if you're buying them used or brand new. So hopefully that answered your question, Masum. I'd love to know where you are watching from. Again, if you are just joining the stream, let me know where you're watching from in the chat. Just say what's up. I'd love to interact with you all. And what we're doing is we're just going through questions and talking about like some of the common problems that I've dealt with. And really just this stream is going to be kind of like a place where you can just kind of go back and or just go into and you don't, you just kind of listen to it in the background and hopefully your question gets answered because these are some of the top questions that I see when people struggle with reading. All right, so let's move on to the third question. My son says he's watching from the UK. Well, let me know what time is it over on the other side of the pond. I'm located here in the United States on the East Coast. So I'd love to know what time it is over there. I'm assuming it's like the sun. It's like it's probably late, right? 1:45 in the morning. Goodness. Well, I appreciate you hopping on the stream and being here to hang out. Let's move on to the next question. All right, the third question we have here. Am I reading too slow? How many of you, let me know in the chat, have heard that speed reading is like the best thing in the world? I know I have. I've even tried it. I'm not good at it. And that's the misconception, right? Is I don't, for me, I don't think reading speed doesn't matter. What matters is understanding. If you don't understand what you're reading, it doesn't really matter how fast. Like, sure, speed comes with, we used to talk about it in the military all the time. It's like increased speed with proficiency, right? So if you're moving so fast that it starts to go outside of your ability to comprehend, there's no point, right? There's like you could try to cheat your or cheat code or hack learning. There are certain little memory tricks and things that you can do, but like when it comes to reading fast, I don't think it's necessary. It's better to go slow and deep versus fast and forgettable. And that's you know that sounds terrible. But there's just so much truth to that, right? So depth of knowledge is going to be much in most cases going to be much better than having just surface level knowledge. And again, it's not about how fast you read, it's about how much you understand. And again, like I said, you're going to naturally get faster the more that you read. And reading is a skill. I talk about this in another video. I talk about like in the book right here, How to Read a Book by Mortimer Adler. This is a great book for anyone that's just getting onto the reading bandwagon, wants to like, there's so many concepts in this book that have stood the test of time. It's an old book. It's been around for a while, but it talks about reading is like skiing. You can't really, if you focus, there's so many things you have to focus on. If you've ever been skiing before, let me know down in the chat. You focus on like your balance, you're focusing on how to turn, you want to like make sure that you don't fall on the ground, and you're thinking about like the skis on your right foot and left foot. There's so many things to think about. If you think about all the different things that you have to do while you're skiing, inevitably you're going to fall down on the ground. If you think about all the things you have to do while you're reading, comprehension, note taking, understanding every single word that you read, how fast you're reading, all those different things, inevitably you're going to not want to do it. It's a skill that you have to practice, right? You don't get better by thinking. You don't get better at baseball by until you actually go out and swing the bat, right? You don't get better at hitting the baseball until you go out and you swing at a few pitches. So it naturally over time the skill will improve. It's just a matter of just the number of at bats, right? And even if you just show up, 2%, and just read like a page on certain days. But again, it's not about the speed that you read. It's about the depth of understanding that you have. All right, so let's move on to the next one. Again, feel free to add on to anything. It looks like we got a few people here on the stream. If you have anything to add, let me know, or just like what your thoughts are. If you have anything else that you feel like would be worth sharing, or your specific experience, I'd love to hear it. All right, what's the next question? Okay. Yeah, this is a good one. This is so much better than having like a laggy stream. And worrying about if the slides are all lining up. Like I can just sit, I don't have to worry about the slides or anything. I just can kind of just go off of my agenda here and make sure that we're good to go. Okay. Question number 4. How do I stay focused while reading? All right. I don't need to really erase this right now. We'll just talk about it for a bit. This is probably one of the biggest problems, or it's been one of the biggest problems for me. And I found a way to, I guess I could talk about this for a while, but there's other questions that it'll be better suited for some of the different solutions that I've had that have been effective for me. Your environment is most likely, that's the problem. It's not your brain. All right. You're like, your ability to focus is not like, it's something that is within your control. It's your environment. So, there's like a million different things fighting for your attention these days, right? If you're on YouTube, you look at your YouTube homepage, like there's all these notifications that you get throughout the day. There's all these advertisements and ads, and there's all these things competing for your attention. And your phone is one of the biggest distractions in your life. If you don't believe me, just go look at your screen time right now. I don't even want to look at mine right now because mine has been terrible lately. And so I am just as much as guilty as this. And I struggle with this to this day. Um, and again, going back to what I said with the last point, reading and training your focus is a skill thing, especially because reading is something that is not, it competes against things like uh, video content and all the things that you enjoy doing. It's definitely on the dopamine scale. It's definitely a lot lower than some of the other activities that you probably do, whether social media or whatever it is that's like is out there that's got your attention. The biggest thing is to remove your phone from where you're going to be reading, right? That's the first one, right? So for me, what I do is I read here in the office, and I try to keep my phone just outside of the room. I have a table just outside my room, and I'll usually have it on loud just in case somebody calls me, and somebody needs to get a hold of me. But I keep it outside of the room because when I kept it here on my desk, I found myself reaching for it 9 times out of 10. I'd be reading, I'd be good. And then this thought would pop into my head and I would just like reach for it. And it was like an OCD thing. Like I would compulsively just grab my phone and open it up with no like set intentions other than just to open up my phone and see what I could get into. And so that would, once I put the phone out of my room, they're in the office here, and just kept it on a table out in the hallway, I was able to read for so much longer. Now, the other part of that is like you want to be reading in an environment that is conducive to reading and an engaged mind. You see all these people that they're like, they read before they go to bed. Now, I think that you can read to calm your mind, but it depends on what type of books that you're reading. I'll say that have yourself a suitable reading environment for things that you're trying to like a learning environment, right? So if you're in a dim lit room and you're in a cozy chair and it's an environment conducive to sleep, you're probably going to, your eyes are going to glaze over, you're going to feel sleepy, and you're probably going to fall asleep, or you're at least going to be nodding off. And can tell you how many times I've been sitting in the bed trying to read. And, even whenever I'm reading from my Kindle in my bed sometimes, which is a terrible idea, by the way, I don't recommend, well, not necessarily if you're doing it on your phone, right? I don't know if there's like blue light stuff, like you get blue light glasses and stuff. I don't know if there's that blue light defense that you can do um, for a Kindle. I don't know if it has that feature on it, but I will say just going to keep careful with blue light before you're going to bed. Anyways, and they do have this feature on your iPhone. I'm aware that you can enable, and I've talked about that in another video, but I don't know if it really helps or not. But anyways, I'm not like a 100% sold on it. I'm like 90-ish% sure it works. But anyways, yeah, I'll find myself falling asleep while I'm doing that. And so you want to put yourself in a place where you can, like, you're comfortable, and pair it with something that you enjoy, right? So whether it's like drinking water or if it's drinking a coffee in the morning, it's finding a time that is best for you and your focus is best, right? So you don't necessarily have to read at night. Trust me, at the end of the day, I am smoked a lot of times. My energy, my cognitive load is just like, I'm done for the day some days. By the time I get my daughter to bed, it'll be like 9 o'clock. And all I'm ready to do, because I have to go to bed in an hour, is like I might have to do some chores around the house. I just want to chill, and so that may not be the best time for you to try to focus, right? So it might be better to just get up in the morning and try to read a little bit. Try to incorporate that into and make it a routine. Your body gets used to those types of things the more times that you do it, right? So focus is something that can be trained, but again, it starts with your environment, putting yourself in a place to where it's conducive to learning. And it's not, removing those things, right? So it's putting your phone outside of the office, or if you're going to read from a Kindle, or your iPhone, you're going to put it on airplane mode, and you're not going to, again, you're going to have all these things put in place where you can't fall into that, because I am just as guilty as anybody else. If I have my phone in here with me and I'm trying to read a book, I will pick that thing up in no time. And before I know it, I'm like on my phone for 5 or 6 minutes doing things that, I'm just sitting here, going completely against what I was trying to do. All right. So as far as staying focused, those are some of the things that I would work on first, is just focus on your environment, cleaning that up. And again, and also you want a well-lit area, right? It doesn't have to be, something that feels cozy and it's a vibe, but it's also not so cozy that you're falling asleep. Okay. Um, any questions on that? Let me know. If you guys have anything to add in the chat, let me know. And let me know what your thoughts, if you're watching on the replay, if these are help, or if these tips are helpful, if they're complete and total waste of time, I am open to any of that feedback, because again, want to make these videos actually helpful for you all. instead of, just wasting your time with tips and things that really aren't helpful. Okay. Next question. That's a pretty good one too. All right. The next question is, why can't I finish books? Right. So I start books. Can you guys actually see the whole question? I'm worried that they're not even all showing up in the frame. They're probably not, but it is what it is. We're doing it live, literally. Why can't I finish books? Well, the first thing is you could be forcing bad books. Have you ever? I can't say how many times, and throwing it to you guys too. Have um, you ever been recommended a book that absolutely sucked and or it was just like super hard to read? I know whenever I was first getting into some of the classics, it was tough for me. They were like, "Yeah, you should just read Seneca or read Marcus Aurelius," and then I open up the books and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, some of this is so dense," and it's not necessarily that it's a bad book, but it's just the right like it's not the right time. It's not solving the right problem for me in this point in my life. So it could be that you're just forcing bad books. So stop reading books that are not working for you, or you don't have a clear purpose with your reading. So I read books based off of what my goals are. And so whatever your goals are, let's say you're trying to improve your sleep. There's a book out there called Why We Sleep, really good book on ways to improve your sleep, like practical ways to improve your sleep. Let's say, Atomic Habits is a popular one if you want to improve your habits, right? You have a bad habit or you're trying to pick up some better habits. That's it. These are just different books that are out there for specific goals. Let's say that you are, you're trying to you want to learn more about God, you read the Bible. Like there's just all these different things. And for me, I have tried and this is I'll say specifically for me, like why I for years I couldn't finish the Bible and I'm reading it right now. But I am further in the Bible than I've ever been in my entire life. And for years it was just I don't know if it just wasn't the right time or what it was, but I have been able to I've gotten through the first 5 books and I started reading back in like February. Yeah, so it was like the middle of February, and I'm through the first 5 books, and it hasn't required much effort at all to read, and that's the thing, right? Is like lean into your curiosity, right? So that's where you find your purpose is like in the things that you're actually curious about, because curiosity well, it what curiosity does is it creates dopamine, and that it creates that dopamine response in your brain, and that's what is the unlock a lot of time that gives you the drive and motivation to power through some of these books. Like if when you were a kid or at some point in your life, you probably read something that felt like literally effortless, and so I want to try to find books that you're actually curious about and get excited about. Another thing that I've done, like if I for me is like I'll get the audiobook and I'll get the physical book, right? So if I need to power through these books, like I'm not only like I will listen and read the physical book at the same time to help lock in my focus and to also be able to just kind of keep me whenever I do that, it's just like I have a set time and it's just I'm fully committed to doing that. And also there's a little bit of dopamine that comes with actually getting the physical book in the mail from Amazon or picking up the physical book from the bookstore. So, those are a couple of things that could be causing you to not be able to finish the books that you start, right? So, again, you hear it, quit more books and finish better ones, right? So quit more of the books that you don't like and finish more of the books that you actually want to read. You don't have to again, you can look up, you can watch a YouTube video and see like, hey, these are the top 10 books on how to be successful. And a lot of them, you're just getting, they don't know your personal experience. And again, do your own, I recommend do your own research. And again, curiosity a lot of times comes from things that you're like ambitious about or you're wanting to you pursue. And again, if you want to know what you're curious about, just look at your YouTube homepage and it'll probably tell you a lot about what you're curious about, because the algorithm is pretty good about figuring out the things that you're curious about. So, and again, this is a great one. If you're watching this channel, this is a great book to read. It's one of those that I just went through no problem. It didn't require much effort. A lot of these things, I was thinking about this not too long ago about, again, it goes back to the skiing method, right? When it comes to personal development, a lot of times we're like, oh, I need to work on this thing, and then I need to work on this thing, and we focus on the micro. And a lot of times, all you really need, the best medicine is just like a clear goal. And then everything else just kind of course corrects on its own. You don't have to focus on all these other little small things. As long as there's usually like, what's that medicine that kind of cures it all? And I found that curiosity is the medicine that it comes to like being committed and sticking with books, and not reading books that you just because you feel like you have to. Now, one more thing that I will say why you can't finish books something again I'm going to touch on it probably a little bit more in a later point is that you're putting too much pressure on yourself to finish these books, and you're trying to go against the grain with your energy levels. So for that, I would say just try to show up 2% on the days that you're struggling. Like, let's say at the end of the day you want to read a book, but you're smoked, you had a long day at work that day, something happened with your boss or whatever happened. Maybe you just had a lot of things that you had to do for that day, and you're just checked out mentally. You come home, you read one page, or you read 2 pages, you maintain that identity as the reader, and you go to bed. You're like, you know what? That's 1 page is progress. It's better than nothing. And so we'll get back to it the next day. And so that could be another thing is you're putting too much pressure on yourself to be perfect, to read perfectly. So yeah, love to know your thoughts. Appreciate you guys hanging out on the stream. If you're just tuning into the stream, I'm going through the top 20 problems that I've had as a reader, as far as like reading books. And these are also 20 of the 20 common questions that I see often. And so we're just kind of we're powering through them. I'm doing all these questions on the dry erase board today because, well, the slides were making the stream all laggy for the last stream. If you didn't watch the last stream, I think it's helpful because it's like a full self-education system that you can check out and apply. Again, watch it after this stream. But it was something that takes you from like start to finish as far as like if you were trying to self-educate. So yeah, let's move on to the next question though. Why? Almost said it out loud. This is probably a little bit much, but I'm enjoying writing on this, and it feels a little bit better because it feels like I'm putting in a little bit more effort into the stream, which is what I wanted to do with the slides. But again, I don't want to be over the top either. We just did that question. Okay. I didn't give it away. Really quick. This one's not bad. Okay. Yeah, we can do this one. Oh, yeah. I've kind of already answered this one, so I'll do this quickly. But I'll expand upon it a little bit more to give maybe better example. Okay. Yeah. Okay. How do I know what books are worth reading? All right. Now, and there is another piece to this that I haven't touched upon, right? And I talk about I'll just say let's just talk on this. Speak on what I haven't touched on yet, right? So, how do I know what books are worth reading? Well, you want to look for timeliness and recommended across different sources. All right. You want to just, great places that you can do your research. Reddit is really good at telling you whether or not something is, you can give you ratings on whether or not something's worth reading or not. You can look at Goodreads. You can look at Amazon reviews. When you see something that's got like over 120,000 5-star reviews, there's a way of doing, that's not, that's just a way of like checking, like that's one way. And then also, again, this book here, I keep referencing it, but it's very highly rated. It's stood the test of time. It's been recommended by different creators. And so it's one of those things is like, you want to look at the different sources that are out there. And then you also want to avoid like the hype self-help fluff that's out there. Right. And a lot of times you'll hear about it, right? The ones some of these books are good. But they're good for certain people at certain stages in their life. Right. So there's a good book that's an example that is a good example to give would be like Atomic Habits. Some people love Atomic Habits. Some people say it's a complete total waste of time. I have my own personal opinion. I'll share it, right? I think it's a good book for the person at the right stage of their life. If you apply everything that's in the book, I think it can definitely be helpful. But there is no one size fits all, right? We as humans, Again, we're unique and we have unique problems and different unique skills. And certain things aren't going to like I don't think it's a perfect science, but all that to be said, um, you want to ask, will this change how I think whenever it comes to like finding like whether or not books are worth your time reading or not? And again, just like look at various different sources. That's what's worked for me. And just play into your curiosity, the things that you're actually curious about. Don't waste your time reading a book that someone else recommended to you because they said all successful people have read this book. I think you'll be much better off if you just stick to something that aligns with your goals. And that's what I did. I read a couple of books. I read the book like, what was a book I read not too long ago? It's like a year or two ago. I read The Millionaire Fast Lane. I read the whole book, and then I mean there was nothing really I could do with that book at that point in my life. It was some good information, but I just read it because it didn't really have any impact. And so um, when you read books that you're curious about, well, you can immediately start implementing them into your life. And you can, and again, that book does have practical tips that you can implement in your life, but it just wasn't the stage of life that I was in at the moment that I was ready to apply the teachings from that book. If you're having financial struggles, maybe you need to read something from Dave Ramsey. Or if you're, again, figure out what you're curious about, what problems that you have in your life, and find where those solutions are located. And sometimes it's just like turning to the classics, right? Some of these, a lot of the self-help stuff that's out there now is like regurgitated stuff that comes from the classics anyways. And so sometimes it's just best to go to first principles, and they're coming from the classics. And so that's just a matter of like looking what your subject matter is, the thing that you're focusing on, and doing your research. So don't want to spend too much time on that one. We'll move on to the next question. But that was, how do I know what books are worth reading? Again, you want to look for those timeless recommended options across multiple sources. All right. So next question. This is a good one. How do I apply what I learn? Well, most people skip this step completely. Um, and so once you're done reading, the next time you get done reading, I want you to ask yourself, what will you do differently? What are you going to go out and do different from what you've done before? Right. So start small. It can just be one action per specific idea. Shoot, it can just be one specific thing. Again, I go back to my 3-2-1 method, right? So three key ideas, two questions, and then one action that you're going to take in the next 24 to 48 hours. Um, that's what you want to do, because you create a feedback loop, right? So you come up with a plan, you go out and you execute on that plan, and then you analyze, you look at like, okay, so this is what happened as a result of my execution, and then you adjust based off of that. You adjust based off of the gaps that you had in your knowledge. A good example of this is like whenever I was reading How to Win Friends and Influence People. Like, there are some of the things in that book that are so simple, but if you go out and apply them, they'll have an immediate impact on your life. And you can incorporate that until it becomes routine, because it takes so much time for neural pathways to strengthen and for things to become a habit over time, right? That's why we have all these different habits, right? They're just strong neural pathways that have strengthened over time. Again, I'm not a neuroscientist, don't claim to be. It's just what I know of habits, right? Um, but yeah, so what I did is like just smiling at people when you walk past them and they smile back, and you do that enough times and it starts to become your normal. Or using people's name, like whenever someone hears their name, it's like music to their ears. And so I tried to incorporate that in more conversations, and just like it gives you, there's just that's your way of applying. That's just examples that ways that I've used it. Again, it's not with the intent of manipulation, but it's okay. I need to improve my communication skills. All right, what are some communications tactics that come from this book that I can apply in my everyday? Or what are some things that I could do to improve my sleep? Right. So, and there's a such thing as sleep hygiene. I could go and I need to shower every night before I go to bed. And what that does too, when you take a shower every night before you go to bed, that signals to the brain that you're getting ready for sleep. And that's that night routine. So you got the morning routine, you got the night routine. And so this is, that doesn't happen. You know, Ralph Waldo and Ralph Waldo Emerson had a good quote that an ounce of action is worth a ton of theory, right? So meaning that your action, going out and taking action, is way more powerful going out and applying than just like having it all appear in your head, right? You don't learn how to box by just reading a book. You have a coach. You have to go out. You have to practice, and that's how you go out. You just apply what you learn and start with just something small and actionable. And if you're worried about, that's the thing, right? So when it comes to like procrastination, it's like just do the smallest version of what that thing is first, just to get the snowball rolling, right? So for like how to win friends and influence people, instead of going through like, you catch more bees with honey, like you want to appeal to the other person's ways of thinking, or I can't even remember off the top of my head now because it's been so long since I've read it. I need to go back and do my due diligence. But instead of just doing the more complex things that could have an impact in your life, start with the simple things like just smiling at people or just using people's names in conversation. Um, those are just small things that you can do that will start building that snowball. And before you know it, you're feeling good. You got that the feedback loops happening, and you can go back and maybe something doesn't work, and then you just go back. You fill in that gap in your knowledge, and then it just snowballs from there. Because what you're doing when you go out and you apply what you learn is you're using active recall. So you have to go back into your mind. You have to think about the thing that you're going to do before you do it, and that you're recalling that from memory. And then after you do it, then you're recalling what happened, that experience in your mind. And that's a form of active recall as well. So that's how you're solidifying the learning. And that's why it's so much more beneficial to actually go out and apply what you learn, because life is it's just a test itself. You go out, you either pass the test, you fail the test. Regardless, you get feedback and you know whether or not you did it right or wrong. And then you have the information to go through in your head. So again, that's how I would say that's go out and apply what you learn. And those are just, again, to not make it, because I could say, it's super simple. Just take what you learn from a chapter and go out and apply it. Okay, Tyler, that doesn't really help me. I know examples are really what helps us learn and stuff. So those are some ways that you can go out and apply what you learn, and why it's so important to apply what you learn. Because again, you can have it all up here in the head, but if you're not actually going out and applying it, you're not really going to make it long-term knowledge. Let's move on to the next question. If you're just joining us on the stream, say what's up in the chat. Let me know you're here. Let me know where you're watching from. We got some folks over on the other side of the pond in UK right now. It's probably like 2:00 in the morning there now. But yeah, rolling on to the next question. Is reading even the best way to learn? All right. Reading is it's input. It's not mastery. Again, going back to what I was saying, real learning is reading plus thinking plus doing, right? So you read, you think about what you're going to do, and then you actually go out and you apply it. That is the best way to learn, is through feedback, in my opinion. So having a coach is helpful as well, but reading is a great starting point for everything. And I will say I'm biased because that's what I talk about here on the channel. I think reading is like the best way to learn, as far as like getting started. It gets the ball rolling, it doesn't mean that you can that the caveat to that is that it doesn't just mean that you just get to read all the self-help books and then your life's just going to magically change, because that's not going to happen. You have to read, you have to think about what you've read, and you have to actually go out. You have to do something. You have to take action. If you don't take action, doesn't matter how many self-help books or how many books you read, it's not going to change anything. Books are tools. They're not the goal. They're just tools to help you get, again, you're learning the lesson without the scar, is like how I've heard it said before, right? So you learn from people who have made mistakes, and then you don't have to make those mistakes yourself, but you still get the lesson itself. So do I think reading is the best way to learn? I think it is the best way to learn, so long as you're actually thinking about what you read and you're taking action on the things that you're reading. I'm going to cruise through some of these because we took a little bit of time on the early end, and we still got like a few more questions to go. So let's move on to the next one. If I'm moving too fast, let me know down in the chat. And if you have anything that you think would be worth adding, or if you have questions, let me know. Um, and I will slow down and we'll adjust the pace to make sure it's not too quick. Okay, how do I? Okay. Next question is, how do I stop procrastinating when learning? Um, well, for that, I would say going back to I talked about it a little bit earlier. Um, you're not lazy. Uh, Most of you are not lazy. You're probably just overwhelmed, and that was the way it was for me. I got this little voice in my head saying, you if you're going to read a book, you need to be willing to sit down at your desk, you need to be willing to pull out your notebook, you need to be willing to take as many notes as you possibly can. And ultimately what that led to was me like hating reading. And even like a year ago, it got really tough for me because I was like, the only way I could read a book was if I was willing to sit down and do all those things. And I ultimately started to dread that. It started to feel like school. And yeah, that just it wasn't something that because I felt like if I wasn't reading that way, then I wasn't doing it right. I wasn't going to learn. And that wasn't the case. Stress, what it does is it affects your cognitive ability as well, right? So stress, uh, it makes you procrastinate, and two, it will just cause you to your brain doesn't when you're under like high levels of stress, it affects your cognitive ability. So that stress takes away from your ability to retain and learn the information. And so what I like to do now is I just like to, you know, make it as easy as I possibly can. And that comes with like having the right systems. And I made videos on this channel so that can to help you all. And so go back and look at some of the other videos after the stream tonight, and let me know like kind of your thoughts. But anyways, procrastination comes from just like making things bigger and just putting this amount of pressure on yourself. It's like it's okay if some days you just read like a page or you read 10 pages. If you're struggling to read, just get some momentum and start reading and stop putting all these constraints, like crazy constraints on yourself. Because I found that it's so much easier, so much more simple to just read and apply something that you read from that book the next day or the next 48 hours, whenever it's conducive. If you can't do that, like I'm reading the Bible right now, and I think there's 66 books in the Bible. And my solution to not like just highlighting like crazy and having to go back and study everything right now is like I'm just going to get through the Bible, and I'm going to use voice to text inside of a Google Doc, and I'm just going to have the name of the book, and I'm going to go down and have bullet points, and I'm just going to speak from memory. I'm not looking in the book. I'm just going to speak from memory. That's the easiest way to do this. And I'm like 5 books through the Bible. Um, Am I going to probably read the Bible again? Absolutely. I'll read it multiple times. But what I'm trying to do now is just trying to get that surface level knowledge, and just kind of just move forward. And it's like procrastination comes, and from my experience, it just comes from all putting all this pressure on myself and just all this friction that's just unnecessary. And I was just like, I used to chop that up to like, I just need to be more disciplined. And ultimately it just was like, it was a systems issue, right? Like I need to read every single day, even whenever I'm tired. It doesn't matter. I still need to be able to read. And I dreaded reading for that reason. So like on the days that I have low energy now, I might not read at all. I try to read. And my biggest thing is what I tell people is just like try to show up and just do 2%. Read one page, maintain that identity to keep that habit going strong, and try to just get back to it the best that you can. Optimize your schedule in a way to where you maximize your energy levels. Because I get it. At the end of the night, you've been working all day, you're probably exhausted. And so try to get up and read in the morning and just read for like 10 minutes a day. It's not about speed. It's about like how again, with the stuff that my solution with the Bible, It's like, how can I implement those things that I'm learning from the Bible and incorporating them into my life? I've been talking to people at church. I've been talking to my family about the things that I've been reading. I've been doing this Google Doc stuff. So it just depends on what you're reading and stuff. But again, the procrastination, it's not a discipline problem. It's an overwhelm problem. Most of the time, your system is off and you're putting too much pressure on yourself to do things perfectly, and there's no such thing as perfection, right? And I am, as a perfectionist in my professional overthinker and perfectionist right here. Um, I've come to realize that, and it's something that I still struggle with. Don't get me wrong. I still like, oh yeah, can I optimize this and make it even better? And I'm like, just stop messing with things. Just sit on your hands or just read the book and stop messing with stuff. So that's what I would say about how to stop procrastinating when it comes to learning, and just make things more simple. And that's what I've tried to put on this channel. I've tried to just simplify a lot of, I've had a lot of these struggles, just try to come up with simple systems like the 3-2-1 method, where you can just go out and you can make learning easy and actually attainable. All right. We're on question number 10. All right. We're going to have to speed through some of these. What are we? Well, we're about at an hour. So I'm down to hang out. I'm good. I can go for a little while. It just depends on, again, if you have questions, let me know down in the chat. But let's keep rolling. Number 10. Oh, this is a good one. They're all good ones, I guess. I'm probably biased. You guys let me know what the good ones are, because I'm biased to all of these, but I think this one's pretty good. I think I put all the words on there right, but it should say, why do I feel like I'm learning but not improving? I'm over here multitasking. Why do I feel like I'm learning but not improving? Okay, I did it right. I got distracted talking to you guys. That's okay. Yeah, it's most likely because you're consuming and you're not actually integrating. There's You're not reflecting on the information from memory, or you're not actually going out and applying. Um, and learning's not going to actually happen until you have those behavioral changes, right? So like you're that's the whole mental masturbation thing that you hear, right? Where you're just consuming YouTube videos all day and you're not actually applying anything. You're just consuming these books, but you're not actually going and applying what you learn. And I get it. Like, the self-help industry gets a lot of flack right now, because again, a lot of these ideas are just regurgitated and just kind of, they're just restated in different ways to try to be made unique. That happens on YouTube as well. A lot of these, all of us creators are, it's a competition for attention, and you want to be respectful of the viewer's time. And so a lot of creators are like, oh yeah, I have this unique framework. And it's like, all you did was just kind of regurgitate what someone else said in another video that I watched. And it's pretty much the same thing. Let me know. You probably experienced that if here on YouTube. But yeah, again, you're just consuming and you're not actually integrating it into your life. All right, next question. Oh yeah. This is a good one. Another good one. How do I build a reading habit? Hopefully this is coming through and my face isn't. I didn't realize that my face was kind of getting in some of these, so they might have been blurred out. How do I build a reading habit? Well, the first thing, again, it's just like all things, is you want to make it easy. If you try to, if there's, let me just tell you, whenever I was like in high school, I did not care about reading. I didn't really care about school at all. Like, it just like, I knew school was important, but I didn't really care about it the way that I should have. I see the value in education now, but back then I was a terrible reader, and I could read, but I did not have the patience, the focus, I did not want to do any of that. It wasn't until I discovered audiobooks that, I was assigned by one of my platoon commanders to read this book called Black Hearts. And it's a book that it's about these army soldiers. They had bad leadership and they ended up doing some really bad things while they were out in combat. And they did some pretty horrific things. And it basically, the story behind it was like how bad leadership can lead men to do like some pretty terrible things to people. So the teaching point was like, you want to not do the things that the leaders in this, like, that, these soldiers, they were like sleep deprived, they were starved, like they didn't have a lot of food, and they were just having to work these long hours, and they were just completely mistreated, and it led them to do bad things. So we were given the option, like, you can read it, you can listen to it, we don't care. We're just going to discuss about it. We're going to talk about it, but we're going to get through the book. And so I started listening to this audiobook, and it was interesting to me because I was something I was curious about, because I was in the military, and I cared about leadership. I was an NCO at the time, and it was just something that I felt like I could just apply in my life. And like it was like there was a lesson there. And so consuming audiobooks was really the trick for me to be able to say, well, okay. This takes the barriers down a little bit. If you just try to go, and again, everybody's different. You can try it how you want to do it. This has been the most effective way for me. Again, you don't have to start with audiobooks. Like, you don't have to use something like Audible. You can, people are resourceful. They can find audiobooks. I know you can. But you can go to YouTube and you can find a lot of audiobooks for free there. But start with audiobooks and just get back into the routine of being a reader, like, because, and make that, start to build that identity, like the identity of being the learner. That's where you got to do first, right? It's like, put on that hat, like, I'm the learner. And reading is a skill. I growth mindset gets talked about a lot. Um, and for me, I had that fixed mindset. It's like, I don't like reading. I'm not going to read. It's just not my thing. And that's not, reading is just a skill. And that's what, having that growth mindset is just looking at things in life as a skill that you just need to develop. And so having that growth mindset, listening to audiobooks, and you get to the point where, okay, now I've been listening for a while. I'm doing these during, like, listen to them while you're doing things like chores around the house, or things that are not going to take away too much of your attention. So, like, those routine tasks that you just do without even thinking about them, like folding laundry and, washing dishes or whatever it is. And so do that. And then the next step that you want to do is you want to get the physical book, and you want to listen and read the physical book at the same time. Now, okay, we're sitting down to read at this point. So one thing that I haven't talked about in another video is, like, your reading environment. I talked about it a little bit about it earlier, but have that ritual, right? This is my reading time. Whatever time that's going to be during the day, whether that's morning, in the evening, it's inside of your car, have a book with you wherever you go. That's always a good thing to do. But have that location where you're going to start this making this reading thing a habit, and pair it with, like, a coffee or your favorite drink. Maybe it's like a soda, whatever it is, but have that a part of your ritual. And so now we're listening and reading the audiobook at the same time. What you're doing, the audiobook is used to get the identity and to build the momentum, get the snowball going. Once you pair the physical book and the audiobook together, that's to train your focus and start dialing in your attention. Like, you're getting a little bit of that because you're actually listening to the books that you're curious about, and you're feeling like you're making some progress. But until you actually start applying things, and really, that's when the physical book starts to come in, right? You'll start to apply things more. We don't want to get the cart before the horse, right? We're just trying to build the reading habit. We're not talking about being the learning machine yet. We're just trying to get back into reading. So then you're going to listen to the audiobook and read at the same time. And that's just going to lock in your focus, right? Be in that space to where you're established reading space, ideally in a well-lit area that's, a comfortable environment that's not going to make you fall asleep in like 5 minutes. Because I'm still falling asleep while listening to an audiobook doing this in my bed. So that's step two. And then step three is, what we're going to do is we're going to start to wean ourselves off of that audiobook. We're going to start to get into that reading space, and we're going to start to try to read the physical book without the audiobook. And this is going to feel weird at first. It definitely is going to feel weird at first, because it's not going to be, you're like, the training wheels are off. And whenever you're riding a bike, when the training wheels are off, if you remember whenever you were a kid, you probably fell down a few times and scuffed your knee. But eventually you'll start to find that balance. You'll get in that groove, and you'll eventually be able to go off on your own. And sometimes you're going to need to get those training wheels back on. You're going to need to get the audiobook. On those low energy days, you might just need to listen to an audiobook. But don't, again, it's easy to, some people, that's all they do. They just want to listen to an audiobook, and that's how they want to consume their information. I think that's fine if that's what your cup of tea is, but just actually go out and apply the things you learn. All right. Reading with your eyes is faster to receive information than listening and comprehending the information. So you can consume the information faster with your eyes than you can with your ears. And another hack that I don't talk about too much on this channel, I talked about it in a video like once, is have something uh, to write with, right, while you're reading and to guide your eyes. That just kind of, you can use your finger. You can use a bookmark. You can use just something that's just going to be kind of like just going to guide your eyes. You can use a pen, whatever. It doesn't have to be. I like to use a pen because you can write in the margins. You can underline that way. It's a great tool to have. So that's what I would say as far as like building the reading habit. So to recap, you want to start with audiobooks. Then step 2 is to pair the audiobook and the physical book at the same time. And then step 3 is to just wean yourself off of that audiobook, or just start to get rid of the audiobook and just to try to read the physical book. And hey, that might just start with 1 page. But you know what? 1 page without the audiobook is better than no pages. And eventually you want to try to get to that point. And again, nothing says that you can't listen to the audiobook and read the physical book at the same time, because dual coding theory says that you're storing the information in more places in your brain. And it's actually better for comprehension when you do that. So if you just want to stick to listening to the audiobook and reading the physical book at the same time, you can definitely do that as well. So it's totally up to you. That's what I would say as far as like building the reading habit. Hopefully that was helpful. On to the next question. Oh, yeah. This one I haven't talked about on the channel. But I did a poll and you guys weren't really interested in this question. Like, you didn't want to see these types of videos. So I will talk about it and get your feedback, because maybe you're just more excited to see something else. But yeah, so hopefully that's in the frame. What's the best way to take notes? Well, I was gonna say, I'm not even gonna say that, because you guys would just probably click off the video and be like, "Screw you, man." Let me show you something that this works really effectively. I'm just gonna grab my little notepad that I have over here. And it's kind of a little bit of a mess. The pages are kind of torn. So I think the best way to do this is kind of like have like a mind map. You kind of see a little bit of what this looks like. So basically what you're looking at here is, so what I do is I outline the skeleton of the book first. This is something they teach in How to Read a Book. It's a whole video in and of itself. And so the different bubbles are like different main ideas that you learn throughout the book. And then these are just like little sub points. And then you're just trying to connect them all together, and see where basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to build out what was inside of the author's mind whenever he had the book. So this is a really like a much more complex way of doing it. And it's not, but this is so much more effective for me than linear notes, because I don't read linear notes. Like I've done the Notion documents. I've done the Obsidian documents. I've done all of those things. And Obsidian, I think, is good. Don't get me wrong. I haven't used Obsidian enough, and I'm still optimistic to think that it is good. But I haven't used it enough. Let me know what you guys' thoughts are on Obsidian. It's just like, I don't like those little shiny objects. That I like practical, makes a difference in your life. And this is just like my way of like, once you connect things, that's when you start, that's the whole elaboration effect I talked about a little bit earlier, where you start to, when you connect ideas, you start to get a deeper understanding of the subject matter. And so what I do is like, I'll write just a quick little bullet. And here's a great way that you can do it. If we're going to just talk about linear notes, I've already discussed it a little bit, but the best way is like, make it simple, right? Make it sustainable. 3, 2, 1, 3 key, like, so when you finish the chapter, you can do 3 to 5 key ideas. It's totally up to you. I just like to minimum of 3 key ideas from the chapter, 2 questions that you have, and 1 thing that you're going to take action on the next 24 to 48 hours. I know I keep saying it, but that's just the simplest way to capture the ideas. And then at the end of the book, what you're going to do is this is what I like to do. It's like a version of taking notes, but you can either go to ChatGPT and have it create a 20 question test for you and test yourself on the entire book there, or you can just open up a document and you can type an essay, or when I say essay, you can just dump everything from inside of your head that you've learned from that book into a document and just kind of have that. And that's active recall. That's good. Um, and or you can use flashcards as well. Use something like Anki, which is great because it uses spaced repetition, so that basically it allows some time to forgetting, or allows some time for forgetting to. It allows some time for you to be able to forget, and so therefore it's going to be the best opportunity for you to test yourself. So those are some ways that you can do it. But what you want to do is you don't want to copy directly from the book. Don't do that. Like, you want to write it in your own words, because that's just how you're going to be able to break things down. Again, I get it. The author, they're probably very well educated, or they're very good at writing, or else they wouldn't have the book that you bought. It's probably a good, like, it's probably a great book. So they're probably a decent writer. And trying to summarize that into something more condensed than they already have it, it might be tough, but just put it in your own words. And it's going to be much more effective. Um, and focus on the ideas, not the details, right? So the author is going to present problems and solutions that you don't need to necessarily worry about all the technical details all the time. Again, there are ways of memorizing the details and everything like that. But when it comes to like taking notes, it depends on what you're studying for and everything like that. Um, there's other methods that are out there for you to memorize like the fine details. But yeah, again, for me, I just focus on the ideas and not the details. So that's kind of just a quick thing on like my note taking stuff. I use like a mind map and keep it simple. Try to connect the ideas. I do like a skeleton. So excuse me. So what I'll do is I'll pre-read the book. So I'm skimming all the chapter titles to get an idea of like the skeleton, where we're trying to go in the book. When we pre-read the book, and I teach this in how to read a book, but when you pre-read the book, you're getting an idea of where the book's going. So you have some context. It's like watching a movie for the first time, and then the second time you watch it, you have more context. So you are able to pick out more of the details and stuff. And so same way with like pre-reading the book. And then I have like that skeleton of like all the chapter titles. And then I know, like, I just kind of have like this template of like, okay, these are the key ideas from this chapter. Okay, how did this key idea link to this key idea in chapter 7 from chapter 3? And so again, I'm just, you can see this better visually when I show it here. And this is kind of what I did. And this is very like rough draft. You can go back and make this. You can, some of you guys are probably be better at this than me if you're experienced with mind maps. I haven't been doing mind maps for too long, but I just started, man, I was just doing these crazy long Notion documents just full of notes that I just procrastinated even going back and reading. So I had to make it more simple for myself and something that's more conducive to the way that learning actually works. Linear note taking is good if you're going to go make it like a habit of going back and reviewing your notes. I'm not saying linear notes are not good at all, but for me, my maps have just been my go-to thing, and I've just found them much more simple and much more effective. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. Hopefully that was helpful. I haven't ever done any. I've done a little bit of stuff on like the best way to take notes, I think. But again, I did a poll like last week, maybe the week before, and you guys weren't too interested in the note stuff. You just wanted to see like the reading system. So again, let me know what you guys in the comments. If you're watching on the replay or if you're watching here on the chat, let me know some of the things that you would like to see here on the channel. Just give me some ideas for things that you would like to see more of. Okay. Let's see. That should be all. All right. How many books should I read? This is I think this question doesn't get asked as often. I mean, maybe it still does. Yeah. Because there's this misconception that you need to read 50 books a year. It's not about, 50, you read 50 books, but how many of those books did you actually go out and apply? It's better to read 10 books and apply all of them and understand them than it is to read 50 books and just have it all up here as theory. So it's about, you want to measure impact, not volume, right? So you don't want to, how much of the things that did you apply? So 10 book, you hear it like 10 books read well is way better than 50 books with like a surface level of knowledge. So I'll say that, for how many books should I read? It's not about that. It's about how many books have you applied. Let's move on to the next question. This is an interesting one. How do I connect ideas between books? Right. So hopefully this is showing up. Keeping it up there for an extra second just because can't really see the like the screen on the camera over this. Okay. How do I connect ideas between books? Well, you want to look for patterns, not just isolated facts, right? So, two books that come to mind whenever I was reading Growth Mindset by Carol Dweck, and I was reading Make It Stick. So, Growth Mindset by Carol Dweck, and I was reading Make It Stick by Henry L. Roediger, and there's a couple of other cognitive psychologists. So growth mindset is all about like the mindset or fixed mindset. And so I'll spare you but in the book Make It Stick, it talks about like learning requires effort. And a lot of times what happens whenever you have to put effort into something, when things seem hard to us, in my experience especially, it's like I resist it. Like I don't like, if I'm having to use my brain, it's like I don't understand something, it makes me feel there's a bad feeling. But they introduce like, so I was like, oh, but what about the growth mindset? And so when I read the book Mindset, it talks about like kids in school. They did like different studies and stuff for like kids in school. It's like kids that had the growth mindset were more willing to put forth the effort. They were willing to try harder than those who had the fixed mindset, who saw their abilities as fixed. And that basically whenever they were praised for, oh, you're so smart, they ended up growing up with that fixed mindset. Because in any time that title ever came into question, or like it was ever that opportunity for them to not be looked at as smart, they would just give up, or they wouldn't be willing to put forth the effort. So those are like the different ideas. So that's how I was able to say, okay, growth mindset is the mindset that I need to have as the learner in order to be willing to put forth the effort that is required for learning that is taught in the book Make It Stick. So that's how I was able to connect the two across the books. And you'll see a lot of good books will have that overlap. Like I'm pretty sure they talk about, if I remember correctly, they talk about a little bit of growth mindset and Carol Dweck's research inside of the book Make It Stick. So you want to ask, how does this relate to what I already know as you're reading? Like, so that's a great way of expanding upon that. So, and that, again, as I was reading growth mindset, that was a way that I could expand on like, okay, well, this is how this applies to learning psychology. And then just helps me build out that better mental framework. So again, you want to ask, as you're taking your notes, you're looking at key ideas, it's always good to elaborate on things that you already know and connect it that way. And this is just causing those, I mean, this is that mind map that's happening in your brain. So all you're doing is just like creating a physical manifestation of what your mind looks like. So let's move on to the next question. All right. After this, guys, we only got 5 more, and then we'll wrap up, and I'll answer any questions if you guys have them in the chat as well. If you're just tuning into the stream, what we're doing is we're going through the top 20 problems that I've had when it comes to reading. And these are some of the top questions that I've seen as far as like reading and stuff. So I'm going through these. If you're, go back and watch on the replay, I'm sure there's a question that you have, at some point. I'm going to chapter this out so you can kind of just bounce around and see the different questions. But I feel like there's a lot of information here that hopefully will be helpful for you all. And you're just, again, we're just going through these questions and answering them based off of my experience, because these are all struggles that I've had, and I know they're tough to work through. So we're rolling into the next one. Okay. Again, I'm getting sidebarred here, and I want to make sure that I typically use slides with this, but the last stream, again, I feel like I've explained this like 5 times on the stream at this point. And so I'm sorry for those of you that have been here the whole time. But I'm using this dry erase board now because the slides make the stream all laggy. So we're just adapting, overcoming, like what I would be said in the military. Yeah, here we go. We got that right. Okay. And I'm trying to make sure my head doesn't get in this. Okay. Why does self improvement feel useless sometimes? Um, Too much theory, um, and no results. So you're consuming, but you're not actually going out and applying. And also, self improvement implies that you are not good enough, and so there's a touch of pressure there to this pressure of like I'm not good enough. This negative self talk that feels like it's going to be like it just makes you procrastinate, right? So and again, whenever you're just consuming, and you're not actually applying anything, it feels like progress, but it isn't. It's just like just false. It's just cheap dopamine, is what it is, right? You get the dopamine from like, oh yeah, I had this aha moment, but then I mean, tell me if this is you. Let me know down in the chat or let me know in the comments. But if go back and look at your YouTube watch history, in like from like a week ago, and go look at some of the videos that you watched and tell me what you remember from those videos. Um, I mean, I have that from my YouTube watch history, but I also have that for books that I have on my bookshelf that I've read. And so a lot of the time, the whole self improvement thing is because it's all consumption without any proper digestion and like going out and applying what you learn. Now, again, self improvement, the self help books, they get a bad rap because there's a lot of it is regurgitated information. Uh, you know, pretty much like looked at as made new. But again, it gets a bad rap a lot of times because it's like all theory and no actual implementation, and no results ultimately because you didn't do anything. Again, these books, they give you that cheap dopamine. They make you feel good, make you feel like you're getting smarter, but you don't actually go out and apply what you've learned. So moving on to the next question. Hopefully that was helpful. Let's see. How do I become a better thinker? Think instead of consume. Think more and consume less. Ask better questions while you're reading. Let's see. I probably won't be able to find it here right now while we're on stream. Uh, but yeah, what you want to do is you want to, whenever you're reading, you want to actively read. And what that is that's like asking questions while you read. And so while you read and you're asking questions, reading no longer becomes about decoding words on the page, and it becomes like an adventure. And I know it sounds kind of so like overhyped, but it could become you're exploring the book versus just decoding the words on the page. And so you're looking for question or answers to the questions that are raising in your head, and it becomes more of a conversation and less of a just like just reading the book from front to back. And that just like so one of the first question is like what is this book about, right? So what is this, and what are the problems the author is presenting, right? And so again, I won't find it in here. But I can tell you off the top of my head and give you the questions that you want to go. So, what is this book about? Right. So, what is this book trying to say? What are the problems that the author is presenting? What are the solutions that the author is presenting? And what of it? Why does it matter? And are these arguments true? Are they false? And so so when you're constantly asking those questions as you're reading through the book, you can write in the margins, you can argue with the author, you can underline certain things. What you're doing is this is just going to help you be more engaged with the book and think more clearly about the book versus just like you're naturally going to start connecting. It becomes a conversation versus like putting this book on a pedestal and like letting all of it just be like it's coming to you through a fire hose. And it's just like when you start to scrutinize the book, you start to engage with it at a level that's like it brings you back to reality. Like it's not just you start to think about how you could apply it in your day to day versus just thinking about how the author applied it in his day to day. And so again, that comes with just asking better questions while you're reading, and spending time reflecting, not just inputting the information. So that's whether reflecting is like actively recalling the information, whether that's through testing yourself or that's through just like going out, getting feedback, reflecting on what that moment was like, analyzing it, and then adjusting for the next time that you go, or for those gaps that you have in your knowledge, or the next time that you go out and apply what you've learned. But being a better thinker is just, a lot of times it's just uh, some another thing is too, and this again, we're trying to keep this on the topic of reading, is just like trimming the weeds or pulling the weeds that could be in your mind. And a lot of that is distractions too, right? So there's a lot of weeds that, get in the way with what we're trying to do. So eliminating as many distractions, whether that's like social media detox, whether that's just an information detox. Like for me, I don't really watch the news. I try to stay off of social media as much as I can. Again, I'm not perfect, but I try to just be mindful of my digital usage so that I just, trying to protect. Again, these are just first, problems that we deal with to this day, right? Back in the day, we used to work in the fields and used to be like everything was like blue collar working. And we didn't have to go to the gym. But now we have all these sedentary jobs that we sit at a desk and we have to go to the gym now. And so before we didn't have the internet, and all we had was books, and we didn't have to really worry about like our minds turning into mush. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have AI. Another thing that I'll say is, and I did wasn't now that I bring up AI, is like don't have an over reliance on AI. Because the more times you outsource your thinking to AI, the weaker it's making your mind. And so those things are going to hold value even more now, as an individual, because it's like the person that overly relies on the calculator. You use the calculator all the time, you lose that ability to do all that mental math and stuff that you've had before. Like a calculator is a tool, yes, it helps you get to the solution, but it's about using AI smarter, not using it for every small little micro thing and just completely substituting your thinking with just the use of AI. And so, for a while there, I was just like having it summarize certain parts of these more dense philosophy books. And I found that it's just better for me to wrestle with the information. It's actually makes it stronger. It cognitively, it makes me think about the information better than just outsourcing it. So just spending time with that information, reflecting, and not just inputting. Those are some good practical ways, I think, to become a better thinker. So we'll move on to question number 17. All right. Just a few more. Man, how long have we been going here? For like almost an hour and a half. This is like the longest stream that we've had to date. All right. How do I avoid wasting time on bad books? Well, the easy answer is just to like quit faster. So practical way of thinking about this is like skim the book. Like pre-reading the book is like it's a hack that nobody talks about really. I don't even think they really teach you this in school. I don't remember learning about it in school, but like it's what takes you from an elementary level reading. When I say elementary, I'm just like the categories. Like before I started reading books, like all through high school, we all go through like that elementary level. That's that just decoding of words. Most people go through life with just that surface level knowledge of how to read. Like unless you go to college, then you go to college and they start to teach you some of these things, but it's not until you get to like way later in your education, whether it's like, you get your master's or your doctorate, like that's whenever you start to learn how to be more of an analytical reader. But anyways, you want to pre-read the book and get an idea for where the book's trying to go. And you when you pre-read the book, look at the chapter titles, read the first paragraph and the last paragraph. If there's summaries in the chapters, read the chapter summaries as well, because that'll just give you a good idea, give you some context as to where you're going. And then, hey, you didn't read the entire book. You just read you can finish the book, you can pre-read the book much faster than you can read the entire book, obviously. But by pre-reading the book, it's going to get you, it's going to tell you whether or not, hey, this is an absolute waste of my time because I already know most of this information. Um, and again, you can look up book summaries on YouTube as well. That's it's a lot of people are gonna there's gonna be bias because they're trying to get views just to their YouTube videos. So just keep that in mind as well. Like, of course, the summary that they're gonna tell you it's a good book, uh, or else that you probably wouldn't be watching the video for very long. Look at your sources. Quit faster. Again, skim before committing to the full book. And if it's not something that's useful, then just move on. Like if it doesn't seem like there's books out there that are bestsellers that are not good books. Um, and just because they have a New York Times bestseller on there doesn't mean that it's the best book for you at that point in your life. Again, it's just like be real with yourself, lean into your curiosity. If it feels harder than it should be, it's probably not something you could be reading it for the wrong reasons. You're not reading it for the reasons that are for you. So that was question number 17. All right. 3 more. Are we going to make it to an hour and a half? I think we will. We'll see. I don't know. Let's see. All right. Can I really teach myself anything? Yes, but only with the system. Um, Random learning is going to just lead to slow progress. So I have a few systems on here. The last stream that I did is like a self education system that I came up with, and it's the Miles framework that I teach. I won't go through all of it here, but it's just like you can teach yourself anything. You look at guys like Elon Musk, and you read biographies about like guys like Steve Jobs and was it Leonardo da Vinci, which is like literally a polymath. So you can teach yourself anything. There's ways you can find textbooks. You can. It's really about your level of commitment and how interested and how passionate that you are about the thing. But you got to definitely have a system. And I will say that you know if you don't have a system, you're just for me for the longest time before I actually built my own system, it was a lot of trial and error, and it was a lot of sporadic scattered learning and stuff. So I've built systems in place. It's much better to have structured learning, and that's what I'm eventually what I'll plan to do on this channel is I'll do some. Well, it's either going to be, and again, I'm open to you all's feedback. It's going to be I'm probably going to do a community with like the entire like self-education system or reading system is probably what it's going to be like for those that are wanting to self-educate, that want to be better readers, better learners, and just to provide that structure. That because the only other structure that you have if you don't have self-education is just going to traditional education system, and a lot of times you end up spending more money for I think that there was something that came out, again, don't quote me on this, I just heard I'm pretty sure I saw an ad recently from Tony Robbins talking about that there's more uh unemployed college graduates than high school graduates for the first time in history. So that's crazy. That there's more people that are high school or that are college graduates that are unemployed than there are high school graduates. Um, and being a lifelong learner, that's just part of. I mean, that's just. I feel like that's the only way to stay sane for me is just to put on that hat of being the learner. Because man, if you think that you got it all figured out, life is really hard that way. Especially, it's hard on the ego. I've lived that for a long time. It's like I got it all figured out, and I know all these different things, and I'm good, right? I don't need to learn anymore. I'm good. I don't need to go back to school. I don't need to learn all these new different things. And uh, I was after I got out of the military. That's kind of how the mentality I had, and then I got a reality check whenever I came back into the civilian world. I was no longer in the military. It's like some of the things that worked in the military don't necessarily work outside of the military. Certain systems and things that I had in place, they're just not sustainable outside of the military. It's a different environment, different ecosystem. So, yeah, Does can you teach yourself anything? I'm in the camp of absolutely you can. But you got to definitely have a system. And if you're looking for self-education systems and reading systems, how to improve your reading ability, check out the channel or the videos on the YouTube channel. And always feel free to drop me a comment. And we can work together one on one, or we can just I'm just happy to answer your question in the comments. I read all of them, so I'd be happy to answer that for you if you have a specific question. All right. All right. How do I stay consistent without burnout? Um, it's about this is a systems issue as well. And it's about this is what I say is the 2% rule. Don't overdo it. You want to keep it sustainable, not intense. It's like willpower will only get you so far. Discipline is important to have discipline for sure. Like you got to do the hard things sometimes, even whenever you don't want to do them. There definitely uh, has to be boundaries, but there also has to be like some days you have to be realistic with like your expectations on what you can do, and you got to remember listen to that voice in the head. Don't listen to the voice in the head because a lot of times it will deceive you. It'll tell you that you need to be perfect, that it's you can do more. You can always do more. Like just you're just not putting forth enough effort, and sometimes that can be deceiving. So just try to be more objective about the situation versus being subjective, and then keep things sustainable, not super intense and rigid. I was rigid for the longest time. And what you want to do is try to simplify your system. Um, as Occam's razor is like what just to keep things. Usually, the simplest method is the best method. Um, I think that's Occam's razor. Gosh, it's been so long. But uh, you want to keep things simple so that it's sustainable. Simple will lead to you doing it for the long haul. And that's why I came up with the whole 2% method. It's like just show up and just do 2% on the hard days. There are going to be, life is, it oscillates, right? Things go up and down, right? You got all this money in your bank account, and then you go out and you just spend it on the weekend, or you go do whatever, you go party with your friends. And then now you're like, oh crap, I hit my low number in my bank account that I don't want to go below. So I'm not going to do anything the rest of this week. I'm gonna be eating ramen noodles for the next week, and then so it goes back up, and so the same thing happens with your reading, right? You're gonna be like, oh yeah, I'm reading all these books, and then you're like, oh crap, life happens, and now like I haven't read much of anything this week, and I need to. It's gonna go up and down, but it's about finding that system. It's like to try to keep showing up and putting one foot in front of the other, and know that whenever you fall forward, right? You're still making progress, and it's all about simplicity. So finding those systems that are going to work for you. Again, finding that routine. Where can you fit reading into your schedule so that you can stay consistent? Some people are going to be more mentally sharp in the morning. Some people only need to get 6 hours of sleep. I, lately, I'm starting to feel like I'm more in the 9 hours of sleep camp. Some people are like, yeah, I'm good with 8, but I'm like, I find myself not as refreshed with 8 hours as I am with 9 hours. So that might be just me in my own head thinking. I don't know. Um, it could also be just it could also just be a fluke. But anyways, what I'm going on a tangent now. You want to find that system that works best for you, whether reading in the morning and always keeping a book with you too can help as well. Like I'll have my like sometimes on my lunch break, I'll have the Bible app on my phone. And I'll just be reading the Bible from my phone. I also keep a Bible in my truck. And I'll also, when I'm reading a certain book and I really want to get through that book, I'll take that thing with me everywhere. Whenever I'm like waiting, so whenever I'm waiting for people, like I'm like if I'm meeting up with a friend and I'm at a certain place we're going to meet up, I'll have my book in the truck and I can just read. Like I can just read that book while I'm there. This is why Kindle is good if you don't want to lug around a physical book. But it's really about just making it so easy to do the thing, and simple. And the last thing, again, if you want to do it at night, you can do it at night, but just know cognitive load works like this. Every decision that you make is going to wear away your attention and all of that. It's going to just make you less, it's just going to chip away. And energy, if you were to think about it like a bank account and you had $100 in it, every time you have to think about or make decisions, there's $10 here, there's $10 there. And how much money do you have at the end of the night? Are you there with like $5? Are you there with like $2? Um, that's just kind of just be realistic for like what your lifestyle is. And I think that you can just kind of adjust it on that. And again, that consistency starts with just like I talked about it earlier. Go back and earlier in the stream where I talked about like building the reading habit itself. It starts, it's the 3-step thing was just like start with the audiobook, then pair the audiobook with the physical book, and then eventually just graduate to just doing the physical book alone. Or you can just stick with the audio and the physical book at the same time. But it's like baby steps. Look, you might listen to the audiobook for 2 weeks before you start introducing the physical book with the audiobook because that's the way what's going on in your life right now. But it's just like slowly making progress and just like setting standards for yourself too, right? This is the last thing I'll say is like having a clear goal is important as well. I didn't put this on here, but I just thought about it. I like to operate with 12-week goals just because the feedback loops faster that way. And because I find if I set annual goals for myself, I will procrastinate to the very end of the year. I'll be like, oh yeah, I want to post this many videos on my YouTube channel this year. And then I'll be in month of November posting, trying to make up for all the videos I didn't post throughout the year. So I like to operate in 3-month things. So I'll have like a burst. And then right now I said I was going to post 2 videos a week for 12 weeks, starting at like the middle of December. And I just got done with that. So right now what we're doing is a live stream and a normal long form video. But eventually, again, so what I'm getting at is like having a clear goal and setting standards for yourself. Like, okay, hey, this is where I'm gonna start to make progress. Like for the next 2 weeks, I'm just gonna listen to the audiobook. And then after that, the next 2 weeks after that, I'm gonna do the audiobook and the physical book. I'm gonna set a book that I'm going to read in the next certain amount of weeks. And again, when you're doing that, like do all the things I talked about earlier. Pre-read the book, make sure it's the right book, like, or just listen to the book summary, or watch a video on the book summary, and make sure it aligns with what your goals are. And again, because some of these things can be confusing, right? It's like, well, how am I going to pre-read the book before I like actually build the habit to read the book? Well, you just got to get going. Like you listen to the audiobook. The audiobook is another way of just like getting through a book. It's like you might not be at that point to where you're like, oh, when can I start writing off books? Well, you might have to read a couple of books that were a waste of your time. Read shorter books if you want to. Like some good books to read, or like that are short and easy that can give you a good sense of progress, is like read The Dip by Seth Godin. You can read Ikigai. That's another good book. If you want to read Atomic Habits, you can read that. Those are all books that you can finish fairly quickly. But definitely Ikigai and The Dip. The One Thing is another good book. But those are just a couple of things that I would recommend. But again, don't overdo it. And consistency comes from simplicity, right? So I feel like I went on a tangent there, but those are just some things that can help with burnout. Let me know down in the chat some things that have helped you with burnout when it comes to reading books. If you have anything to add, if you're watching on the replay, let me know down in the comments. Hey, for those of you that stuck around for the whole stream, you guys are the real OGs. I appreciate you. We're coming up to the last question on the stream. And I just want to say I appreciate you guys for sticking around this long. Again, this is the longest stream. We're like an hour and 38 minutes. I enjoy this going really long form. I probably enjoy this much more because I'm doing like I have the physical, something tangible here in my hand. I hope this is like a decent, like the viewing experience is not bad for you all. Because I know the slides are helpful. But again, here's a hack for you all for these long form videos. If you ever need the transcript, you can always go to the transcript of these videos, and it can, I don't want to tell you to do that because I don't want you to copy and paste this into your notes. But if you need like, they want to see it written, you can look in the transcription as well, to follow along as well. So, hopefully I didn't show this. This is the last question. Okay. Okay. Too good. Okay. This is an interesting question. Okay. Hopefully we can see that. Yeah, we can see it. What's the fastest way to get smarter? I would say to that there really isn't a shortcut. I talked about it a little bit earlier. And that's probably not the thing anyone wants to hear. Excuse me, sorry. Uh, Learning requires effort. Excuse me. I'm over here dying from, I guess, from talking too much, yapping too much over here, y'all. Um, there, I don't think that there really is a shortcut because learning requires effort, and that's just like tough medicine to swallow because you gotta. It's about putting in the words. It's about reading better, thinking deeper, and applying faster. Those are the ways that you can do it. The faster you apply things, and setting goals and being, I guess you could set some certain things you could do faster. But as far as like speed reading and watching all these YouTube videos and expecting your life to magically change, it's really just all about like the feedback loop. If you think about the growth mindset, everything in life is like a skill game. Then it's really about number of times on target, right? So how many times do you step up to the plate and swing? That's really what it's about. And are you actually thinking, right? So when you go up there and you swing at the ball, are you actually applying new things that you learn, the theory, or are you just showing up, swinging, and not doing anything else other than that? Because that's like you have a plan, you execute on the plan, you get feedback from that, and then you have to analyze that and adjust based off of whatever. That's the whole feedback loop. Whole thing is like it's a cycle, and the way to really well get smarter faster is to iterate and adjust. And another thing is, I will say, this is one of those things. Alex Ramosi talks about this. If you want to get smarter faster, it's like you want to pay people to shorten that time that it takes for you to learn, right? So you're going to spend money. They call it, I think he calls it ignorance debt, right? So you're paying down that ignorance debt. You're going to pay the money to learn. You're either going to pay in time or going to pay in money. You can teach yourself or you can hire a coach. Hiring a coach is great because you get that feedback from your coach. And that's one of those things that I eventually plan to do for this channel is like to build a group coaching program. So to have a community of people that we can just kind of go through this whole reading process. So you don't have to make all the same mistakes that I did. That I can give you feedback on your specific situation on how you can improve it, and then you can go out and apply it. And then a lot of times you're just a few small steps away from just like just going exactly the way that you want to go. But it's really you spend the money and you get the information that you need quickly, or it's going to take some time, and that's okay either way that you do it. Like I don't judge you either way you want to do it. I took the time route. I haven't spent hundreds and thousands of dollars. Like a lot of this YouTube stuff I have spent some money on because I mean that's what's helped me kind of get an understanding on how to make better content. But as far as like self-education and stuff like that, I'm like military educated and going to school. So like we're all human and again it takes time for these things. And if you don't have the money to spend at this point in your life, like I don't blame you, right? Times are the world is the world is in an interesting place right now. And so, I I enjoy buying a steak, but I don't buy a steak as often as I did uh, about 5 or 6 years ago. So yeah, so we're just in a different times. But that's that when it comes to like the fastest way to getting smarter, it's about like reading better, thinking deeper, and applying faster. Going out there and actually, if you're going to do the time thing on your own, you got to shorten that feedback loop, right? So that means you got to read, you got to stay committed to what you're doing. And I like to do this just in bursts, right? That's the whole 12-week thing. I would work really hard for 12 weeks. And then I'm taking a break right now, like kind of a break. This is how I maintain this sustainable because like yesterday was Easter. And like I knew that I needed to, I filmed 4 videos. It was like a week or two ago. I think it was 2 weeks ago. I filmed 4 videos. So I batch produced those 4 videos and I'm like, I want to go live because I want to do more live streams on this channel. I want to go live in between. So instead of it's technically a long form upload, but it's a live version of that. So I want to go live and I want to post a long form video. And that way I'm still posting 2 videos a week. But these lives are just, I don't know, maybe it's because of the experience is different than doing like, because I'll have to batch produce 8 long form videos. And that just, I don't know, 8 videos is a lot. And doing them live, it allows me to be a little bit more loose, a little bit more unscripted, and I get to interact with you all. And that's probably the best part about it is like I get to talk with real people that have like problems that I can like. It's not just there's only so much back and forth that we can do in the YouTube comments sometimes. And so doing this live is a cool chance for me to interact with you all. So I saw people earlier we have on stream that are watching from the UK. Um, and it's just cool to get questions and feedback from you also. That was all the questions that I have. I'll hang out for another minute if as long as you guys, if you have questions, drop them down in the chat. I really hope this was helpful. This whole stream was. If you missed some of the questions earlier, go back and watch that because on the replay, I feel like it will be helpful. And I'm gonna put the chapters in here too, so you can kind of bounce around and look at specific questions or answers to your specific questions or maybe the problem that you had. But these are all 20 of the biggest issues that I've had. Again, I've thought, what's the fastest way to get smarter, and thinking that, when I was first, I was really eager to learn, and I'm super excited about that. And I, it was like eye opening. It's like, yeah, but that's just there's levels to the learning type of game, and it's really like if you want to learn faster, it's going to require effort. It's not just like the cheap dopamine thing of just over consuming content because I've done that too. Like watching all the self education YouTube videos on personal development, on like how to all these different things, how to improve your mindset, how to find your purpose, how to improve your sleep, all this, and I'm like yeah, the example I gave earlier is like go back and look at your watch history from like a week ago and tell me how many of the things you remember. Sometimes I've went back and I'm like, did I watch that video or like how did that video end up on my history? Because I don't even remember watching that video at all. So I feel a little bit crazy, but yeah. Again, if you guys have questions, let me know down in the chat. If not, it was cool hanging out with you all. It was good to interact with you, and yeah, I hope this stream was helpful. If you want to see more like this, let me know. I'm gonna see. We might have more things like this. I'm gonna try to figure out the whole situation with the slides playing with. Again, if you prefer the dry erase board over the slides, let me know down in the chat or let me know down in the comments because I prefer the dry erase board. Um, I could do the whole Alex Hormozy thing where I have a dry erase board in the corner, the office over here, but I'm like, that seems like I don't know. I don't really do dry erase boards things that way. But if that's what you guys want to see, let me know. I can do it that way too. Uh, again, it's whatever you guys wanted, how you guys want to see the content. So I appreciate you all hanging out on the stream. Um, and I look forward to doing more videos like this. Keep learning, keep growing, keep going. And I'll see you all in the next one. You guys have a good evening or good afternoon, whatever, good morning, whatever time it is, wherever you're located. Have a good day.